Lightsabers cutting into things is very popular in both Star Wars movies and fan films. But can you replicate the lightsaber scar and burn in HitFilm? You bet. I'm Sensei Jay Haynes. Let's get started. Please note that everything we do in this video will need to be tweaked to fit your specific project file. But here are the basics. I'm going to start by creating a new composite shot, and it is going to be, for this case, 7 seconds long, and I will click OK. Now, I don't need to have a background, but usually you will, so I'm just going to bring in this background image of a piece of steel. The first thing we'll want to do is create a path where the lightsaber burn will happen. I'm going to do this by creating a new point layer, and I will rename it the point of contact. If I open up the properties under transform, you can see the position, and if I move the point, then you can see that those position values change. If I click on this little circle, I can create a keyframe. If I move forward, say a couple of seconds, and I move it, and then I move forward a couple of more seconds, and I move it again, then you can see that I have created a path for which the lightsaber burn can happen on. After 4 seconds, I will go ahead and have it stop. But again, in your project, that may be different. What I'm going to do now is bring in the particle simulator. If you do not have the particle simulator add-on for HitFilm Express, then you cannot do this in the HitFilm Express. But if you do, then you can. And of course, you can always do this in HitFilm Pro. There's the particle simulator. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and double click on that, bringing up the properties. If I open up the emitter properties under shape, I can go ahead and attach that particle simulator to our point of contact. And then as the point moves, the emitter will move with it. If I open up the particle system itself and under movement, I expand the life to be a full 60 seconds, but I take the speed down to 0, then you can see that we have the start of our scar line that will be created. Now remember that we ended at 4 seconds, so at this point I want to make sure that no more particles are being formed as soon as that lightsaber disengages from its target. To do that, under General, I will go ahead and keyframe the active keyframe. I will move forward 1 frame and then click off the active checkbox. What I want to do now is change the appearance. And to do that, I will go under Appearance, Texture Source as a built-in texture, and I will go ahead and select the debris rock. If I come down a little bit further, you'll see color, and I can just change that color to match whatever I want it to look like to be the scar. In the movement properties, I can adjust the scale so that it can be bigger or smaller. I may also have to change the particles per second in the general category. However, in this case, I won't need to. I'll now go ahead and rename this scar. And if I duplicate it by right-clicking and selecting Duplicate, I can drag the duplicate underneath and rename it Glow, and we'll work on that next. Opening up the emitter properties of the glow, I will change the appearance color to perhaps a bright orange. Right now you can't see it because it's behind the scar, but if I open up the movement properties and increase the scale a bit, then you'll be able to see it better. If I search for the glow effect and drop that onto our particle simulator, and I make a few adjustments, bringing up this intensity, perhaps taking down the threshold a little bit, adjusting the radius, I can get a fairly nice looking glow effect here. The glow itself is as a result of cauterizing the steel or the target that's around it. But that cauterization doesn't last long and will soon fade. To replicate this, what I will do is I will go to the lifetime properties and look at the alpha. Right now, that is turned off, so it is 100% visible the entire time. But if I were to, say, change this to gradient and bring the 100% visibility to the very beginning, and then create a second visibility, say 5% in, which would represent about 3 seconds of the 60-second life, then I could go ahead and take the transparency down to 0. That way, after about 3 seconds, the glow itself will begin to fade. One more thing that I would like to do is perhaps add an auto light flares effect under the glow. I need to be careful in adjusting these properties to make sure that they don't have too much of an auto flare. If I up the max flares to 100 and then I take the threshold down a little bit, you can see that right away we have it. Changing the glow to a light sword clash and then bringing down the intensity will create just a little bit of an impact that we want to see with that glow. And as the alpha channel fades off, then so will the glow. Let's go ahead and add sparks. I'm going to right click on the scar and duplicate it again. And I'm going to rename it Sparks. If I then double click on its properties, I can open up the emitter and I can, under particle system, change the appearance to the built-in Sparks star. Under movement, I can adjust the life properties to 4 and I can change the speed to be 500. By changing the color of the appearance to something, say, yellow, we'll have these sparks that are flying all over the place. Of course, we want to have gravity and perhaps a little bit of turbulence affecting those sparks. So I will come down to the forces, and if I add a force, that naturally is by default a gravity force. I can rename it gravity. And if I add a second force to it, then I can go ahead and open up the properties and change the type of that force to turbulence. Of course, you may want to change other factors such as the scale, the size, or the particles per second. Also, you may want to make some adjustments in the variation properties to create a sense of randomness. Don't forget when you're done to turn on the motion blur to create an organic real feel to that. Let's create the contact flare that happens at the point of the lightsaber. I'll start by creating a new plane layer. Make sure it's black. Click OK. Under the layer properties, you can change the blend mode to add, and then search for the light flare effect. Change that effect to something like the light sword clash orange, and under the hotspot position, zero out the position properties and go ahead and attach it to the point of contact. You may need to adjust the intensity level and the scale to get it to look right. Don't forget also that the flare should end at 4 seconds, so go ahead and keyframe the intensity from here. When you're done, you should have something that looks like this. So that's the basics of creating a lightsaber burn scar for your Star Wars project. This is Sensei Jay Haynes. Thanks for watching.